Mga kaibigan, mga kapipidi, mga ka-wrestling at mga ka-podcast, gusto niyo bang malaman kung paano kami nakikipag-collab sa mga brands in the MT Show podcast? We use Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast. If meron kang podcast, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD to get full control on how you monetize your show regarding of its size. Again, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD. If you're an advertiser who wants to collab with us, head on over to advertiser.podmetrics.co and fill up the form. Again, Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast. Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the FTG Show Podcast. It's Friday, and you know what that means. Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast, and this is the MTG Show Podcast, a wrestling podcast. Oh, 2 years na tayo. So definitely this year we're going to get the most stupendous podcast episode of the year. In this case, we are kicking off WrestleMania season with a bang. So, alamin na kung bakit. Kasi, dalawa po ang WrestleMania natin ngayon. So, we got WrestleMania and WrestleMania Backlash. So, technically, in this world, we're kicking off WrestleMania weekend with a bang. Friday. And then we're going to end on May 9, 2022. That's May 8 in the US. So, WrestleMania Backlash. Joke lang. For really, guys, let's start our WrestleMania weekend with a bang. Today is Friday. If you're listening to this podcast every Fridays on your favorite podcast platforms and on the podcast app, you can listen by Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Deezer nga pala. And ayun, sa lahat na nakikinig, I want to thank everyone who is listening to this podcast every week. So obviously, andito na tayo sa case. We are going to talk about the most stupendous WrestleMania in history of WrestleMania. So, we're going to talk about WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. And then, yung Stand and Deliver, obviously. NXT Stand and Deliver is Sunday ng madaling araw. And then, yung isa pa na SuperCard of Honor kasi nagbabalik na rin ng Ring of Honor. We're going to tackle that in a bit. So, I promised that last week na wala tayong commercial breaks. Number 1, wala na kasi ako network, pre-agent na ako. And number 2, ayoko talaga mag-commercials ngayon. So, let's do this. Old style, old format, straight up podcast, dire-diretso. Wala tayong paligoy-ligoy on this week's podcast. So, let's do this. So, ito bago tayo magpatuloy pala, before we go, konting plugs lang. So, if you want to support the podcast on your shopping on Shopee, please guys. Support the podcast, especially lalo na ngayong 4-4 sale, marating na yung 4-4. Please support the podcast by checking out on Shopee. Lahat ng bagay nasa Shopee. So please use my link on the description below, podlink.co/bhx. Again, that's podlink THEMTGSHOWPOD.co/PHX. Makakatulong yan sa podcast with no extra cost to you. And pwede nyo rin i-check out syempre yung aking link TR kasi nandun din lahat ng aking links, Lazada, Shopee, etc. Link tr.ee/the MTG Show Podcast. Let's get down to it. Konting mga nilay-nilay muna, mga small news, kumbaga. Let's start with the Triple H announcement. So, in-announce ni Triple H earlier this week that he is going to take a permanent retirement from in-ring competition. He will take magre-retiro na siya in-ring sa wrestling. Kung hindi nyo naiintindihan, si Triple H ay inatake nitong mga nakaraang buwan dahil siya ay natake sa puso. And later on, nakapag-recover naman nata si H if I'm not mistaken. And masama yung lagay niya. Kinonfirm niya sa isang podcast sa ESPN o show, whatever, that he is going to retire for good in in-ring competition. So maybe isa rin tong dahilan kaya hindi na rin niya hinandle ang NXT 2.0. Isa rin tong dahilan kung bakit probably hindi na siya yung guy na pwede niyong asahan to take charge of the company or maybe take charge of WWE. So, ang masasabi ko lang, sobrang simple lang. Salamat talaga kay Triple H. Thank you, Triple H, for everything. And sobra-sobra talaga yung pasasalamat ko. Lalo na yung naging fan ako ng wrestling. One of the reasons is Triple H. Sobrang hindi ko makakalimutan yon. And until his final match, sobrang masasabi ko talaga I respect him. And all of his accomplishments, sobrang nire-respeto ko si Hunter for that. And unfortunately, yan na yung huli niyang I hope na anytime soon makakuha rin siya ng sarili niyang induction. Kung gusto man ng WWE na i-induct siya, that's a proper way. Maybe WrestleMania 40. WrestleMania 40, it is. Yan lang. Sa 39, I think it's Batista. Batista ang plano ng 39. And then, another news, bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating WrestleMania predictions. So, the Steiners, Rick and Scott Steiner, will be inducted to the Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame Class of 2022. Kasama nila dito sila Sharmell, si Undertaker, and then syempre si Shad, and many more na in-announce na din prior to last week or last Tuesday, I think, in-announce na nila that Steiners na kilala naman natin na may problema o something na beef sa WWE, may induct na sa Hall of Fame. Ano masasabi ko, that's a big banger o big announcement by WWE na hindi natin inaasahan na mangyayari. Hindi ko talaga inasahan to. Personally, di ko siya inasahan na mangyayari siya. Na may induct din si Scott Steiner sa Hall of Fame. Especially, dagdag pa natin na may isa pang Steiner sa WWE, Braun Breaker. I hope na palitan din pangalan niya, Braun Steiner. Weird. But yeah, congratulations to the Steiners and kay Shad. Rest in peace for his induction pa din as part of the Warrior Awardee. And nga pala ako din, mag-i-agree din ako na isa dapat siya sa magiging replacement for the name doon sa Ultimate Warrior Awardee. Ganyan, award, something like that. Okay sa akin din yung Shad Award. Shad Gaspard Award. That's okay. That's okay with me. And then finally, so itatakal ko dapat sa Dynamite review natin pero maybe hindi ko na siya isama. So, Toni Storm made her AEW debut by beating Ali in her debut match to be qualified doon sa Owen Cup women's side. Ano masabi ko? That's great. Marami pa susunod. Saan nyo na, marami pang susunod. Hindi lang si Toni Storm yung makikita nyo na former star sa na magde-debut dito sa AEW. Hindi lang si Ali. Hindi lang si Tali tuloy. Hindi lang si Tony Storm. Marami pang susunod dyan, for sure. Na? Okay. Yun lang ang ating small news. So, recap na lang natin kung ano yung mga nangyari bago tayo mag-WrestleMania. I-recap natin lahat ng kaganapan sa Raw and sa SmackDown. So, ngayon yung this week's on Raw, para sa akin, sobrang solid no main event nitong WrestleMania Raw. So, it's the Usos versus RK Bro. Sobrang napag-coincide nila yung mga stories ng tag division sa Raw and SmackDown. Plus, the match itself is so fucking good. Sobrang sakto lang sa akin. Hindi ako gaanong na tawag dito, na exaggerate. Hindi kagaya ng mga matches sa competition na sobrang overused ng mga shit nila. Sobrang nakakainis. And then, I love as well, syempre, sama ko na NXT. I love the LA Knight versus LA Knight MSK versus Imperium. That's a great match as well. Sobrang, alam mo yun, I think that's the match of the night in NXT 2.0 this week. Aside doon sa qualifying match, doon sa final slot, yung kina Roderick Strong, A-Kid, at saka kay Cameron Grimes. That's a great job as well. Ayun, dagdag pa natin. So, LA na, yun lang. Yun lang, I think. And then yung Toxic Attraction, I think this is the best segment of Toxic Attraction so far. And sana hindi yun last. Sana hindi yun yung last nila magiging segment dito sa na ganito. Ganito yung naging setup nila. Sobrang ganda ng setup nila for that segment. And I hope na walang matatanggal for now ng mga championship sa Toxic Attraction. Cross fingers. Sana wala. Sana wala. Promise. Sana po wala. Okay. Since walang commercial, kaya nyo na. Stay with me, guys. Patience lang. Okay, so talk pa tayong konti. So let's talk about AEW Dynamite before we go to the WrestleMania predictions. Malamang sa malamang, hindi to aabot ng 30 minutes. O 45 eh. Kasi maikli lang naman tong episode ko. Dahil, joke lang. Tignan natin. So, let's talk about the matches that I love from this week's Dynamite. Ayoko masyado magpahaba. So, I love the Punk versus Max Caster from this week's Dynamite. Hindi naman siya kapangitan. Hindi rin kagandahan. Saktuan lang. Kumbaga, nakita natin yung ibang side ni CM Punk dito. And that's impressive for me. And now, he challenged Adam Page na o kaya Adam Cole for the AEW Championship. Whoever holds the championship, he doesn't care. And Punk is on the line right now for a challenge doon sa AEW Championship. And then, as well, gusto ko din yung kay Jon Moxley tsaka kay Jay Lethal on the second bout, I think, of that night. That is a fantastic shit. Man, trust me. Sobrang ganda na to laban. This match is a top-notch shit. Na kailangan nyo panoorin ng TV, trust me. Kung gusto nyo manood ng Dynamite quickie matches, I think this match is definitely a must-watch for me. Definitely a must-watch. And then, let's talk about the Jericho Appreciation Society brawling with Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie Kingston. So, nagpa-form na ulit yung 5150, whatever ko, pangalan nun. 8150? Putak na. Yung LAX, nagpa-form na ulit sa AEW. That's a great historic moment for AEW. So, maybe maglilid to sa Double or Nothing. Long-term story crap na naman. Sana may ano, sana ang tawag dito. Sana may blood and guts between the pay-per-view and May. Kaso malabo kasi may Owen Cup nga pala. Sana may blood and guts soon between Jericho Appreciation crap and yung tawag dito, yung LAX na binibuild nila ngayon. Sana magkaroon sila ng blood and guts match. Ayun, so yung kay Tony Storm, minention ko na kanina. And then yung kay Darby Allin and Andrade, not bad. I'm not super impressed. But definitely the call for this match is on point. Andrade winning the match on point para sa akin. That's it for my AEW Dynamite review. And magmumove on na tayo slowly for my WrestleMania prediction. So that's the most stupendous WrestleMania in history. Like what I said, wala tayong commercial breaks. So mag-a-ad break na lang ako. So please guys, I want to remind you nga pala na if you want to start a podcast, syempre, hindi naman pwedeng magmukha ka lang tanga o para lang sa formality. Lahat ng ginagawa mo sa podcast, you can earn money without doing crap. So, and Podmetrics, syempre, Podmetrics is the easiest way to monetize your podcast. So, if you want to start a podcast, visit podmetrics.co and use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD. Again, that's podmetrics.co/podmetrics.co. And please, pag magre-register kayo, please use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD. Okay? Wait lang. Wala na akong boses agad. 15 minutes pa lang ako. Here on the clock, wala na akong boses. Sobrang nice. And, sige, continue tayo. Pag-usapan natin ng konti, pag-nilayan natin yung stand and deliver at saka yung SuperCard of Honor kasi kailangan din natin pag-usapan yun for our predictions. Kasi ang plano ko for WrestleMania week after nitong WrestleMania 2 nights, papanoorin ko both events. Tayo ay gagawa ng 1 day, 2 days nga ako mag-record eh. Bale, i-divide natin siya into 2 parts. So, yung part 1 is the night 1 of WrestleMania plus the stand and deliver. Minention ko yan sa Twitter. And part 2 of the WrestleMania night 2 and then yung SuperCard of Honor plus the fallout of WrestleMania. So, is pagkasabay-sabay natin yon on Friday next week. And part 2 will be dropped on Monday. I think it's Holy Monday. Holy Monday, tatapat yon. Whatever test, hindi ko alam kung anong oras. Basta standby na lang kayo for more details of that week's podcast. Alright. So, let's start with SuperCard. Kasi it's gonna be a short card lang naman. Na ipipredict ko that 6 matches. But hindi naman ako ganang interested sa ibang matches of the card. So, let's start with the Willow versus Mercedes Martinez matchup for AEW. Just for formality, gusto ko magkaroon ng crossovers talaga between AEW and Ring of Honor. And since tinitis na rin naman ni TK, medyo magpapaka-obvious ako. Ano? So, Mercedes Martinez will win the interim Ring of Honor Women's Championship and she will face Deonna Purrazzo in a later date. Kasi in-announce na din sa Ring of Honor. And then, FTR versus the Briscoes for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. So, simplest prediction for that. I think FTR must win the tag titles. Ang weird na dating sa akin, but I think it should be. It should be on that way. FTR will win the tag titles. And then, finally, the main event, the unification matchup for the Ring of Honor World Championship. It's Bandido versus Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor Undisputed Championship. The simplest logic here, si Bandido, sobrang bihira ako nakikita sa TV. Si Gresham, halos every week nagde-defend din eh. So, the simplest answer for that, if they want to expand the gusto pa nila mas makilala yung championship or yung champion nila right now. Si Gresham talaga dapat ang ipanalo nila. Ano, wise decision na rin kasi nakapag-ikot na si Gresham unlike si Bandido, hindi. So, yeah, that's I think the best decision na kailangan nilang gawin for SuperCard. So, I think it's Gresham. Jonathan Gresham. And then, let's talk about Stand and Deliver now. Kasi it's gonna be a long card for WrestleMania for sure. So, let's start with Stand and Deliver. So, Stand and Deliver will take place Sunday midnight Manila time only on WWE Network or Peacock. Or if you're from India, you can watch it via Sony 10.1, Sony 10.3, and Sony 10.4. Alright, so let's start with the kickoff match for the Stand and Deliver. It's Toxic Attraction, Raquel tuloy. Toxic Attraction, Gigi Dallen, and JC Jane versus Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. The simplest story for this is inatake ng Toxic Attraction backstage si Wendy Chu, and then during the segment that I mentioned earlier, biglang lumabas si Dakota Kai, and then yun, 3-in-1 advantage, and then ayun, Raquel Gonzalez returned and saves the day for Dakota Kai. So I think the simplest answer for that is if main roster na si Raquel o si Dakota Kai and even Wendy Chu, the simplest answer for that is dapat i-retain to ng Toxic Attraction. No? The simplest answer for that one is hindi muna nila i-drop yung women's tag titles. No? Ang dapat mag-drop si Mandy. Mamaya i-explain ko on the half of the episode. Maybe ma-explain ko siya mas mabuti. Alright, so next is the ladder match between Carmelo Hayes, Cameron Grimes, Grayson Waller, Solo Sikoa, and Santos Escobar for the North American Championship will be contested in a ladder match. Okay. I'm going to pick two guys here on this one. So, it's either Carmelo Hayes or obviously the safe choice si Cameron Grimes. Either of those two, walang tapon sa akin, wala akong reklamo. Pero I think it's Cameron Grimes o si Carmelo Hayes. Okay? Okay, next, it's Tony D'Angelo versus Tommaso Ciampa. Okay. One of the most interesting feuds of the night for Stand and Deliver. I think deserve to ni Ciampa, pero for formality dapat to D'Angelo to. Kasi total last match na rin sa NXT, mag-move out na rin siya sa main roster. So a win for Tony D'Angelo is magsesement sa kanya bilang pamalit baby kay Ciampa as the soul of NXT or the heart and soul of NXT. Whatever test, it's a must win for Tony D'Angelo. Di naman ganong kawalan kay Ciampa if matatalo siya ni TDA. Tama? And then, let's talk about LA Knight versus Gunta. Ang hirap pala pag di nakaharap sa akin yung mic. Okay, LA Knight versus Gunta match. It's a big banger match for sure that we need to look forward. But my prediction for that is I think it's a Gunta. Kailangan manalo dito ni Gunta for sure. And sana move out na rin sa main roster si LA Knight. Kasi si LA Knight sobrang pang main roster guy yan eh. Sobrang magiging impressive yan for sure pag dinala siya sa main roster. It's gonna be great for me na fan din niya, especially nung Impact Days. Sobrang magugustuhan ko pag mas nakilala pa siya mabuti sa main roster. Then, let's talk about the Fatal 4-Way match for the NXT Women's Championship. Like what I said earlier, hindi dapat toxic attraction ng madrap eh. Dapat si Mandy Rose eh. So, the field for the Fatal 4-Way Women's Championship match, it's Mandy Rose versus si Kaylee Ray and Io Shirai, the winners of the Dusty Cup, and then Cora Jade. Okay? So, the easiest choice for this matchup is Mandy must win the title or Cora Jade. Bakit si Cora Jade? New era, new face. Simple as that. But seriously, I think Mandy Rose should win. Hindi ko iniisip na mananalo si Kaylee Ray. Si Cora Jade may 10% chance of winning for me. But definitely this is a win. A must win for Mandy Rose for sure. Then yeah. So we got the triple threat ladder match. I think ladder match ba to? Hindi. Sorry. This is a triple threat match for the NXT tag team titles. So it's Imperium, the champions, MSK, the random challengers who got replaced earlier that month nang replace nila ang Creed Brothers, and then the Creed Brothers, the Stick Up winners. Okay, simple as fuck. I'm going to pick Creed Brothers for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Imperium is okay na sa akin. I think that yung reign nila, it's okay for me. MSK doesn't need the win or doesn't need to be in the feature in the first place. I don't know why. Hindi ko kailangan ng MSK in this picture right now. I swear. And then, finally, the main event of Stand and Deliver. It's Braun Breaker versus Dolph Ziggler for the NXT Championship. Simple as fuck. We need a Braun Breaker win on this one. If they want to cement Braun Breaker as the top star, the top dog, the top ace of NXT, Braun Breaker definitely needs to win the NXT Championship. Simple as that. Okay, before we go to our WrestleMania predictions, I want to remind you guys about something. So, Lazada will have another sale on maybe 4/4. So, if you want to shop everything on Lazada, sabi nga lahat ng bagay ay nasa Lazada yan. Please use my link on the description below, podlink.co/6gs. Again, that's podlink.co excuse me, /6gs. Lahat ng mga pindot dyan sa link ay makakatulong yan here on the podcast without no extra cost to you. Alright? Nag-uutal-utal na ako kasi ang hirap ng walang commercials. Personal commitment eh. No? Okay. So, I think this is the perfect time for my WrestleMania predictions. Alright. So, I'm going to change my setup a little bit. And let's start our WrestleMania Night 1 predictions. So, let's start with the most unnecessary matchup of the night. It's the New Day versus Rich Holland and Sheamus with Butch. As much as I hate this thing up, I want to see Butch in the action, not Sheamus or Holland. But still, fuck it. I'm going to pick Rich Holland and Sheamus for no reason. I think they deserve the win. Okay, let's move on. So, next matchup, the Mysterios, Ray and Dominic versus The Miz and Logan Paul. As much as I love and I want The Miz to win, pero ang iniisip ko, Mysterios ang mananalo dito sa tag match. Hindi naman magmamatter kay Logan Paul if matatalo siya on Mania. Pero malaking gain to kay The Miz if matatalo nila si Rey Mysterio and si Dominic. Pero ang first pick ko, I think it's Mysterios. And then, it's Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin, not advertised on WrestleMania Raw, but still advertised on network. So, yeah. Fuck this crap. I don't give a fuck about this crap. Ayoko na makita to after ng WrestleMania. Ayoko na marinig tong putang inang to after WrestleMania. So I'm going to pick Drew McIntyre. Get the fuck out of here. And Drew, please, balik ka na sa title picture. Putang ina. Okay, let's continue with our next matchup. It's Seth Rollins versus the Vince McMahon personal choice. Okay, this is a hard one kasi maraming kumakalat na pangalan right now. Okay, there's 6 names na gusto kong i-mention pero ayoko. I think tatlong pangalan lang ang pumapasok sa isip ko. It's Shane McMahon, pwede rin si Elias, and obviously Cody Rhodes. So if si Cody matutuwa ako, +1. Pero feeling ko may swerve silang gagawin dito. Knowing WWE, they love swerves eh. Pero sige, I'm going to give the prediction kung sino man yung magiging TBA, kung sino man yung makakalaban niya. Siya yung mananalo, not Seth Rollins. Okay, let's move on. The Usos versus Nakamura, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Rick Boogs for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. As much as this random feud exists, man, I don't give a fuck about this. The Usos will retain the titles. Okay, so let's talk about the main events of WrestleMania Night 1. Number 1 is Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. Okay. Sobrang hirap ito sa akin. Either of those two can win. Pero must pick ko for this one. I'm gonna go with Becky on this one. Kasi pwede pa naman nila ma-stretch to. Sobrang ganda ng feud na to. Unlike the Ronda and Charlotte thing na hindi na kailangan i-stretch kasi sobrang I hate the build. And mas gusto ko pa nga yung build ng kay Becky and kay Bianca. So a Becky win can wide the feud of further. Sobrang mapapahaba pa yung magiging feud nila if Becky will win the match at WrestleMania. So, yeah. And then the main event of WrestleMania Night 1, it's Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Okay. Let's do the math here. No? Maraming may ayaw na kay Charlotte kasi sobrang stale na ng run niya. Marami ding may ayaw kay Ronda kasi she's Ronda Rousey. So, the simplest logic here, sino mas maraming may ayaw? Mas maraming may ayaw kay Charlotte. Funny eh, no? Pero, sige, I'm gonna go with Ronda here, right? And then, let's move on to WrestleMania Night 2. Sabi ko na, maikli lang ito magiging episode. Okay, so, WrestleMania Night 2. Let's talk about the first match of the card. It's Bobby Lashley, the returning Bobby Lashley versus Amos. Man, ito yung match sa tingin ko, the most unpredictable match on the whole card of WrestleMania. But I think Amos needs the win. Pero Bobby Lashley definitely must win for him. Pero si Omos kasi, he is the guy na pinupush as the next top guy, next big guy of the main roster. Kasi marami nawala. So, si Paul White, si Bray, si Braun. Dami nawala na big guys. So, a win for Omos maybe mag-cement sa kanya and put over a Bobby Lashley win. Maybe it's on the horizon then as well. But my first pick, obviously, it's Omos. Okay. Then, let's talk about Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory in a one-on-one match. I think walang natatalo dito. Pat McAfee competing is a big win na agad para sa akin. But the match is obviously for Austin Theory. No more fucking reasons. Austin Theory. And then Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville in a anything goes match. A Sami Zayn win will benefit him a lot rather than a Johnny Knoxville win. Kasi wala nang makaka-benefit nun aside sa mga nanonood ng tawag dito yun ng tawag dito sa palabas ito. Yung movie niya nakakapalabas lang na asshole. Basta ganun. Jackass. Forever Jackass. Okay, whatever. But I think Sami Zayn must win. Wala namang kawalan kay Knoxville para sa akin pagkatalo siya. But at least he tried his best and I respect him for that. Alright, so let's talk about the one of the most important matches of the card except on the next one. So, let's talk about Edge versus AJ Styles, the new Edge. The new Edge, the new and more dominating Edge on that shit. AJ Styles defeat. Hindi naman siya makakawalan kay AJ. So, pwede pa nila din ma-stretch itong feud after WrestleMania. So, Edge will win this match for me. Right? And then, sige, let's stretch this shit out a little bit. I don't want to talk about this anymore after WrestleMania. So, Carmella and Queen Zelina versus Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler and Natalya. Fatal 4-way rules for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. As long as anyone but Carmella and Queen Zelina, I'm good at it. But my pick is Sasha and Naomi. And Sasha and Naomi. Everything but Carmella and Queen Zelina, okay lang sa akin. Pabor sa akin yun. And finally, the main... Di pa pala. Sorry na. So, we got a triple threat tag team titles match for the Raw tag team titles. So, it's RK Bro versus Street Profits and Alpha Academy. I think a big win for RK Bro for WrestleMania is a definitely plus one for me. But gusto ko din makikita na manalo dito Alpha Academy. As much as you guys hate Alpha Academy, but Alpha Academy definitely deserves a moment here at WrestleMania. And then finally, the main event of WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, title for title unification match for both WWE and Universal Championship. Balikan natin yung tweet ko a few days ago. So, nagkamali ako doon na kung pinapost na jinx stuff, yung pag-jinx nila ng championships, nagkamali ako doon. Pinost nila parehas. Pero to be fair, no? To be fair sa inyo, i-explain ko dito ngayon kung bakit ganun ang observation ko. Kasi dami na nilang champions na ganun ang nangyari. Na-jinx yung momentum nila. Kaya definitely, yun na yung trauma ko. Yun na yung trauma ko eh. No? Yun na yung naging trauma ko for the matches na nangyayari recently. Diba? Yung mga recent matches, especially yung mga matches last year, ganun na yung observation ko. And balik tayo doon sa match itself. I think a Brock win would benefit both SD and Raw. Either of them, para sa akin, would benefit both shows a lot. Hindi naman din sinabi na mawawala ang brand split. Hindi rin sinabi kung madidivide na ulit yung roster o mag-merge na ulit yung rosters. No. The case here, pares silang top champions. Pares silang draw. So that's why they wanted na pagsamahin yung belts for a period of time. So, a Brock win would benefit the superstars a lot. No? Parang, tawag dito, pwede niyang, ito yung swerve Shoutouts kay Rowan, ASH, at saka kay Julian. Putek kayo. Ito na yung swerve ko. No? Pag si Brock ang nanalo for WrestleMania, ito yung theory ko eh. Baka i-drop niya o i-vacant niya yung one of the two championships. And parang wala na yung brand split. The goal lang naman is to beat up Roman Reigns. So if Brock wins, maybe magtutuloy lang yung WWE Championship run niya. Diba? And then he will drop the Universal. Simple as that. The goal is to beat up Roman Reigns lang naman. Kung yun ang magiging goal niya and kung mananalo din siya. Diba? And if Roman Reigns wins the match, man, hindi ko ma-imagine na mag-e-end yung WrestleMania this year with a lot of boos. Hindi ko ma-imagine po tayo na matatapos yung WrestleMania with a lot of boos from the people who was watching in home via Peacock, via the network. Hindi ko ma-imagine na ganun yung mangyayari. Promise. Hindi ko ma-imagine na ganun yung mangyayari. Okay, safe choice. Kasi mag-wrap up na rin tayo, no? Ito na yung last match for the weekend. And, okay. My prediction for Brock and Roman is obviously Roman Reigns. This is Roman Reigns era. But if Brock wins the titles at WrestleMania, I'm going to celebrate a lot on that whole fucking day. This is a Roman Reigns must-win situation. Alright? He is in God mode right now. A definite win for Roman Reigns would benefit him a lot. No? Okay, so that's it for my WrestleMania predictions. Let me know your WrestleMania predictions in the comment section below and on the podcast platforms below. Before we go, let's talk about my picks of the week. Kahit hindi ko na gano'ng tanda yung iba. Pero, sige, i-figure out natin. Ano? So, the superstar of the week is Brock. The woman of the week, if I'm not mistaken, hindi ko tanda yung mga picks ko. But the match of the week ko of this week is the finals of the New Japan Cup. It's Tetsuya Naito versus CSJ Sabre Jr. for the New Japan Cup finals na nangyari last week. So, Naito versus Sabre Jr. is a must-watch from this week's wrestling. Okay, so that's it for this week's podcast. Follow the podcast on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and on TikTok at the MTG Show Pod. You can listen to this podcast every week on your favorite podcast platforms and on the podcast app without no extra cost to you. The podcast app is available on Google Play Store. Alright? And please support me on Patreon, patreon.com/themtgshowpod. Wala pa akong content dyan, pero as a general support of the podcast, as low as $1, please support the podcast, 50 pesos. That's a pretty long run due para sa akin. Malaki tulong yan sa akin here in the podcast. And ayan, so for more links and stuff ko sa podcast at lahat ng mga pinaggagawa ko sa buhay right now, please visit my linktr. That's linktr.ee/themtgshowpodcast and on Twitter and Instagram at AG Penera on Twitter and IG. So yun lang for me. Thank you for listening on this week's episode of the podcast. See you next week for the part 1 of WrestleMania review. And remember, stay safe, stay reso, and please, wag po tayo boboto ng sinungaling and ng mga may supporters na dinibang ng Guinness World of Records. Okay, thank you. See you at the next episode.
Catch the MTG Show podcast every Friday on your favorite podcast platforms. And remember, stay safe and stay wrestle.